Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Real Estate with Mary. Today I am so happy to have here a good friend, Terry Moynihan, also an attorney here in Riverside. Let me tell you a little bit about Terry. He's from the Moynihan Lyons firm. Terry Moynihan is certified by the State Bar of California Board of Legal Specialization, a specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law, and is a frequent speaker on estate planning and related topics. He is a past president of the Riverside State Planning Council. Terry is a graduate of Gonzaga University School of Law in Spokane, Washington. He also holds a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Washington. Terry is a U.S. Navy veteran, thank you for your service, and is accredited by the Veterans Administration to present claims on behalf of veterans. So with that said, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Terry Moynihan.
Hi. Good to be here.
Great, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. Today we are going to be talking about probate, okay? Something that affects a lot of people that own real estate. So a lot of our clients and a lot of people don't know what is probate. How can that affect me, in terms of, my property? So we'll talk about that. He's definitely a specialist in the area. And first, let's start with how long have you been doing, I've been working with probate and as an attorney, estate planning attorney?
About 30 years, and I started this firm 26 years ago.
Oh, wow. So here in Riverside?
Here in Riverside,
wow,
that entire time.
The entire time, wow, that's great. So you know the ins and outs of, everything with estate planning, probate, everything. Definitely.
This is our field, and we have expertise in these areas.
Oh, okay, well, great. So we are very lucky to have you. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Yes. Well, let's get into it right away. Well, Terry, let's talk a little bit about, what is probate, okay?
So probate is a legal proceeding by which property is transferred from a decedent to whoever's entitled to it.
Got it.
And the entitled is done by will. Wills have to be probated. That's a common misunderstanding.
Oh, okay.
They do, and the will specify who is to receive it. And if there is no will, then it passes according to state law.
Oh, okay.
So we all have a will done for us by the state.
Oh, right.
If we don't do our own.
Yeah, so basically they'll decide.
That's right. The probate procedure is generally something you want to avoid because it's expensive and it's time consuming. In California, it takes approximately 8 to 9 months to transfer real estate primarily. Most probates involve real estate to their intended recipients, and that's the minimum.
8 to 9 months.
Minimum.
Wow.
The most effective way to do that is to create a trust.
Okay.
What we call a living trust. And these are superior because not only is it a mechanism for transferring property without having to go through that court procedure, but it can take account of things that you don't expect to happen.
Okay.
And that's the weakness with other techniques like joint ownership and or transferring
just
before death. They're blunt instruments, and they don't take account of what happens if the order of deaths is wrong. For instance, if I create a joint tenancy with my son, I'm almost always expecting that he's going to outlive me.
Mm-hmm.
But what if he doesn't? And then I'm right back where I started. So there are problems of that and inadvertent disinheriting of people. So it's you want to avoid the probate, but you want to do it in a way that you accomplish your goals, and you do things that allow for unexpected contingencies. A trust can do all of that.
The trust.
And that's why we recommend trust for California owners of real estate.
Of real estate. So if someone owns just one house, we still recommend that they put the house in a trust, right?
That's
because
correct.
you never know what can happen. And can you tell us a little bit about, how does the trust work? Because a lot of people have, questions like, what is a trust? How is that going to protect me? So first, if you can tell us a little bit about the living trust.
A trust is a contract.
Okay.
And it's a contract between the person who creates the trust, who is the settlor or the grantor, there's various terms, and another person called a trustee.
Correct.
In practice, the trustee and the grantor are the same person.
Okay.
And so that's just kind of the genius of it, is that we can divide the ownership, but we still retain 100% control of it.
Got it.
So the grantor enters a contract or an agreement with the trustee that specifies what's to happen to the property under various conditions. One of those conditions is disability or incapacity, and this is kind of overlooked, but is really sometimes the most important consideration.
Correct.
And the other consideration would be what happens at the event of death.
Okay.
And the trustee then carries out that contract if disability strikes or when death occurs. And the trust can be fairly simple or it can be very elaborate.
Depending on how the assets.
Depending on the assets, depending on the goals of that grantor. For instance, a grantor may decide that he wants to skip a generation and use his property to educate grandchildren.
Oh.
And so the trust can provide that the property in the trust is to be administered for the purpose of getting grandchildren through college.
Okay.
Or it might involve charitable beneficiaries.
Okay.
Or it might involve people outside the family. So there's just maximum flexibility
With the trust.
with the trust. And it's done in a way that's private and keeps the government out of the affairs. A way that a lot of people think of it that way.
Good. So let's, this is really good information. So let's make it, let's say a simple way to talk about a trust. Let's say I have a property, I create a trust, I am the grantor, I can be also the trustee, right?
You typically want to be.
The trustee, and I say, if in the event of I become incapacitated, I would like my daughter to take over this trust.
You would designate her to be the successor trustee.
The successor trustee, okay, correct.
So she takes that function, but you're still the grantor,
Okay,
even though you're incapacitated.
in the event that I die, then she becomes the trustee.
And probably the
And
beneficiary.
beneficiary, okay. And so at that point, it avoids going through the court process of probate
That's
because it's
correct.
already designated in this trust.
That's
right?
correct.
So it's less paperwork, less money to spend, right?
That's-
Going through the costly probate process. Right. Okay, well, great. Also, I know that a lot of people ask, does a probate protect their assets from, creditors or outside creditors or things like that? Is that true?
It does not. It's often said that there are two principal aims of a probate proceeding. Number one is to assure the property transfers to those persons entitled to it. The second thing is the protection of creditors. And the creditors are taken care of first.
Okay, even if
So-
you have a trust.
Well, that's true. The creditors are protected with the trust, but when you ask whether the assets can be protected from creditors in a probate, the answer is no.
But and a trust.
In a trust, you can conceivably do it,
Okay.
but then the trust has to be done in a certain way, so.
To be, okay.
But very definitely, you ask about protection of creditors, life insurance proceeds cannot be touched by creditors.
Oh,
So if I have a $100,000 life insurance policy and I name you as the beneficiary, and then I die, that $100,000 is paid to you.
okay.
And there can be no
Okay.
No deductions for anybody else on the way to you.
Okay.
But a probate proceeding is different. Creditors, there's a specified mechanism by which they present their claims, and if they're approved, then they're paid first.
They pay first,
So
and then.
that's important to keep that in mind.
Okay.
And there are ways to create trust that accomplish those things too. But that asset protection is a whole separate kind of an issue.
Okay, so it is so important for all of you to know about how to protect your assets, especially your real estate, your properties that you work so hard to buy, to pay for, and you have your kids that you want your properties to go to, or whomever. So just make sure that you have your estate planning done. So we're gonna have Terry Moynihan's information, contact information. So if you have any other questions, that you can always contact him at his office, and make sure you have everything planned in the event. We never know of you become incapacitated or death. So definitely estate planning is number one. So let's see, what are another thing that you want to make sure you're working with a real estate professional that knows how to deal with these probates, right? Because there's a lot of mistakes. And
That's correct. Qualified professionals are always a bargain in the end.
Great. So as you know, I've done many probate sales. So if you ever have a question, someone in your family passed away and the property needs to be sold, definitely feel free to contact me, and I'll get you in contact with the right professional, such as Terry Moynihan, and we will make sure that everything is well taken care of and there's no mistakes, any extra costs. Especially when you have people that don't know what they're doing. So please remember to share, like, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Real Estate with Mary, and I'll see you in my next video.